Yo, what's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today we are doing another 10-minute tutorials. This is going to be how to secure your home network, and also if you have a small company or anything like that, this is how to secure a small network in general with wireless. So what I mean by that is we're not going to cover switches and networking. We're just covering wireless security. So if this interests you guys and you guys like the content and the channel, go ahead and hit sub below. It helps out a ton. We're almost there. I'm trying to get to 5K this year, so hopefully we can crush that goal, and you guys have been supporting and killing it. Thank you so much. Also, if you guys didn't know, on the Patreon there will be the guide to how to do these, or the steps to take to do these. So make sure you check out the Patreon, the Discord below. The Discord is free, so there's nothing there but as far as the content, but there is a ton of help and assistance on the Discord, and we get a ton of people that are joining the chat, talking about different subjects. It's not all just cybersecurity. Sometimes we get on tangents on there, but there's a lot of fun, and there's also live streaming in the Discord. So make sure you check that out too below. So let's go ahead and hop into it because we got 10 minutes. So there's a handful of steps that I'm going to cover with you guys. So there's going to be basically 6 main things that you have to do to secure your home network or your small network. Now, this is a test router. So you can see here, I'm at the router's homepage, the admin page, and we're going to cover through those steps. So the first things first is on your machine and on the router itself, turn off IPv6. So you can see I have it disabled. Turn it off. A lot of people will say, well, what about if we run out of IPs, blah, blah, blah. This is a home network. You're not going to ever run out of IPs on your home network, okay, or your small office network. You're never going to run out of IPs. It adds an additional attack vector that is not needed. Do not have IPv6 on unless you absolutely need it for some reason. You have an application design that only can use IPv6, something like that. Otherwise, don't use it, okay? So then we're going to go to step 2, and that's identify and limit all network devices. So what I mean by that, and I'll show you, is so you see this right here. You should have a spreadsheet. Now I'll zoom this in because I can tell it's already too big. And I added 2 rows, of course. So you can make this however you want. Actually, you don't have to, let's see if we can make this bigger. And of course I just made the text bigger, or the thing bigger. So, all right, we'll just have to increase the font. Hopefully I still can't tell if that's big enough. Let's see. Okay, it's not changing the font. That's all right. I'm not really worried about it. If you guys can't see, this says device, this says IP address, this says MAC address, and this says comments or additional info. So you should have this spreadsheet in your network, whether it's, just on your phone or however you have it. You should have this spreadsheet. Now, the reason you want this spreadsheet is because you should have your device listed. So let's say we have a small office computer. We have, main office computer. And now you could put like a host name here if you actually have it named something specific. But if it's your main office computer, you know what it is, perfect. Then you could say cell phone. Then you could say, okay, well, now from here we have our main office computer, our cell phone, and then we'll have laptop. We bring a laptop in, and then we bring a tablet in, okay? So this is a very small network, but you can see we have a list of them, right? Well, here's the thing. You should enable, and then we're going to get to it, but you should enable static IP addresses. Do not allow for your router to automatically assign IP addresses. You can, but for security purposes, you should have static IP addresses that you can control. So we'll say main office computer is going to be 192.168.0.100, and we're just going to start at 100, and we're just going to say, okay. Now, you want to establish these before you go and program the router. The reason for this is because the router is going to automatically set it to dynamically set, and so you can go in and manually change these later, but you want to do it beforehand so you can get all these connected, because I'll show you why, but you can grab the MAC address off of the router. Okay, so the MAC address, the reason you need this is because you're going to enable MAC filtering. So what MAC filtering does is it takes this MAC address, and unless you have that MAC address that you specify, you cannot join the network, okay? And that's really important, because that's going to say when people try and join, hey, no, you can't join, right? Or what we're going to get to, which is you can join our guest network, but you cannot join this network. Okay, so now comments and additional info. Here we might put, desktop that sits in the main office, right? Doesn't really matter what you put, but this might be a little bit more informational so that as your company gets bigger, as you progress, you might end up with a couple hundred. You can keep track of those because a couple hundred is a very small network still, and you might have a very small IT team, right? So there we go. So now we covered the spreadsheet. You want to get this spreadsheet and you want to get it down pat first. That's one of the first things you want to do. And the reason you want to do that is because you do not want to be guessing at what's in your network or what should be in your network. So the static IP addressing, okay? So you can see we do not have this hooked up to the internet, so you're going to see it's not going to allow. But you can see we start at this address, 192.168.0.1. You can do this however you want. You can start at whatever IP address you want. Your subnet mask, unless you're a very large business, this should be fine. You don't need to change the subnet mask. You don't need to be a network technician to know this stuff. So just keep that in mind. You don't need to worry about routing tables and all that stuff or IP. So you can see here we don't have the dynamic, or we don't have the internet hooked up. That's why we don't have an IP address here. Yours will have that, so don't worry about that. But you can see as we keep going, we'll go to security, and this is where we're going to start looking at some security features. So here, you do not want to respond to pings from WAN. Okay, make sure that's off, because if it's on, basically people are going to be able to scan you, and your router's not going to stop it. Okay. Access controls. So this is where you're going to actually go in and you're going to whitelist things. Now, keep in mind that every router is different. I want to make that clear. This is a cheap router that I use just for videos and testing and things like that. This is not an expensive router. So yours might have a ton more options, like quality of service might have a ton, or you might have more options, or you might have different options, okay? The big thing here is whitelist. So blacklist is how we have it set now. That's how it'll come by default. What that is I have to specifically put in here, do not allow this to connect, right? We want the opposite. We want it to flip. We want whitelist. So we want to say only allow things to come in. And you can see this is my computer, and then there's my MAC address that's obviously blurred out. But you can see anything this is why I tell you to automatically connect to it first, because if you automatically connect to it first, then you can see that you'll get the MAC address, rather than if you do it later, you'll have to manually add it and you'll have to find the MAC address on it. So you go ahead and add it, clear that out, add the whitelist, excuse me, and then you'll have a list that should match your spreadsheet right here, and it should be all those devices with MAC addresses, and then those are the only people that can connect to your device. That's the biggest thing I can tell you off this, because that is going to be huge. Okay, now there's some other things I'm going to show you. The firewall, as long as it's on, you're good. Most of the time it's not going to be very you're not going to get a lot of security from the firewalls here. So you see IPv6 is off. Then we go to system. One thing to check, the firmware update. You always want this to be on the highest update possible. That's their stable version. So what I mean by that is they release versions that are out to the public. You want it to be the best one for your router, because there will be some that they might release early, and those are in testing. Don't worry about those. You want this to be the most stable version that's currently, and you can check that on your router's website, or you can click upgrade and it'll ask you. The biggest thing is you do not want to just sit on your router and never have it update. Now, do you want to back it up? Yes, you want backups. You want backups of the router, and the reason for this is because if something happens, let's say you have a huge power outage and it bursts the router or whatever, you go buy a new one and you come back and you have the backups restored. You don't have to reset everything. You don't have to get all the MAC addresses again. It's all set. So that's big. Administration, again, make your password to get into the router. This part is common sense, but make it extremely secure. Remote management, you should not have remote management on unless you have a specific reason to. You do not need remote management, okay? Do not use it. You don't need it, okay? So keep that in mind. System log, it's nice to check these every now and then, but you're going to get a lot of stuff there. So keep that in mind. If you're having issues, you can diagnostic stuff, but you don't have to. And then one thing that people ask a lot is they go, well, shouldn't I turn my SSID off where it's not broadcasting? You can, but a hacker's going to find it the same way. They're going to still find it. They're going to see it So yes, you can. It's just not going to show up when people go on the bottom of their screen and click like connect, but a hacker can still find it very easily. So yes, you can. It's not super more secure or anything like that. The MAC filtering is the biggest thing, and keeping track of what devices are on your network. Now, this is what I do at my home, and this is also what I do not for my job because I have a large scale network, but this is what I do with small companies that I also do some whatever you want to call it, counseling, support, you know, architecture review, those type of things. Really anytime I'm going through and I'm actually talking to a company and explaining some vulnerabilities, security things, most of the time, small companies, this is where they fail a lot. And the reason they fail here isn't because they're bad, isn't because whatever. It's they just don't understand. They think Wi-Fi sets itself up and it's no big deal. And most of their tools are software as a service. They're not using a lot of infrastructure or any cloud services that they know how to work with. Most of the time, it's a small company that's paying for services. But if you can get in their network, you've got everything. So this is where you need to stop the buck right here and just handle it right here. If you know what you're doing, you can dive more into the networking and segmenting it. And if you also have a guest network, go ahead and if you need people to connect to your Wi-Fi, okay, if you need them to, only if you need them to. So for instance, if you have a small company and you need people that come in to be able to connect to your Wi-Fi, turn on guest networking, okay? Do not allow them to access your local network, but turn on the guest networking and make sure their permissions are different. Make sure that they aren't blacklisted, that only the white lists can get to your regular Wi-Fi, and then the guest network has their own Wi-Fi that's segmented off. That is another huge thing, okay? Now, with that said, guys, I hope this helped out somebody. It will definitely help out your home network and your small business. Now, if you live in a big city, you need to do this ASAP because people are taking advantage of your Wi-Fi. Whether you believe it or not, go on to some of these sites that map it out and look, and I guarantee if you're in a big city, your Wi-Fi is there, okay? So go ahead, handle your router, log into it. If you don't know how to log into it, just look on the back of your router. There's usually a website, which will be something like this, or go to the website of the company. So, for instance, this is TP-Link, Archer C54. I just looked that up, and boom, from there, I know that, okay, I need to find the homepage. I'd type this into Google and say, login page, and it'll give me the website. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys learned something from this. A lot of this people know, but what people don't realize is how important this is, because this is such an easy target and such an easy way in, and it's not getting better. The other big thing here is make sure you're using the most up-to-date WPA version. So right now we're on version 3, I believe. So make sure you're using the most up-to-date security standard. If your router should default to it, but if it doesn't, just go ahead and change it. Don't use some of the older, outdated versions. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you guys think. And if you guys like this, go ahead and comment below and tell me what the next 10-minute tutorial should be. This one was a little long, but thank you guys, and hope you guys have a great day.